Welcome back, everyone, to NeuroAlchemy, a NeuroSynergy podcast where science meets soul and where healing is explored as a multidimensional, nonlinear journey. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Young. And before we begin, I want to name something that we do here on NeuroAlchemy. We define every term as if you're hearing it for the very first time because clarity creates safety, and safety opens the door to deeper insight, more choices, and more healing opportunities. We also slow conversations down on purpose. We honor complexity without being overwhelming, and we center the lived human experience right alongside the science. Today's conversation explores core beliefs, subconscious trauma, identity shifts, and what becomes possible when we listen to the body rather than as always. You're invited to listen gently. Please pause when you need to. Nothing here is about force or perfection. Feel free to take a breath. You don't need to decide anything today. Today, I'm joined by Sarah Dawkins. Sarah is a former registered nurse. She spent over 20 years in clinical care before confronting a deep inner conflict between pharmaceutical medicine, authenticity, and what true healing requires. After healing herself naturally, changing a core belief, and moving what she describes as a dark night of the soul, Sarah made the courageous decision to surrender her nursing license. She went on to write Heal Yourself and now supports others in uncovering the subconscious roots of symptoms, particularly childhood trauma held in the mind and in the body. Sarah's work centers on helping people reconnect with their innate capacity for healing and addressing beliefs, emotional imprints, and the deeper layers beneath physical symptoms. Sarah, we are so glad to have you here. Welcome to NeuroAlchemy.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's great to be here with yourself and your audience.
Before we dive in, I always like to begin just with a gentle check in. How are you arriving as we step into this conversation, energetically, physically, or otherwise?
I am happy and healthy and full of energy and in a great state of mind.
That is a beautiful way to be for sure. And for all of you out there, remember that there's no right way to arrive here and that however you are showing up today is enough. Before we go deeper, I'd love to orient our listeners with a few shared definitions. Sarah, I'm going to invite you to help us define some ideas in everyday human language instead of medical jargon. So let's start here. When you talk about core beliefs, what does that mean in real life inside the body and the nervous system?
It's the things that basically they define us. It's so a big core belief that I shifted was I need doctors and pills in order to be well. So when I'm sick, I need to go to a doctor and get a diagnosis or get some pills or a cream or an investigation to help make me well. So our core beliefs are what we believe about ourselves and the world around us. And they're so ingrained that often, unless we're made aware of those, we run on autopilot with these beliefs running our lives, totally unaware. And I didn't realize that was my core belief until it was challenged back in 2005. So your beliefs are literally what you think about the world around you. And it's great when they're triggered because that shows you what you believe and how deeply you believe it as to how triggered you are.
And very often, the things that we are kind of ingrained or the way that we're programmed, so to speak, these core beliefs, they're not actually working for us, are they?
No. And if we dig into that, they're actually not ours. We've borrowed them as children from our caregivers. And it's only when we start becoming triggered or being challenged that we start looking at where did this come from? And we recognize that it's a belief that we hold. And quite often we didn't even know that we held that.
Absolutely. How do you define subconscious trauma, especially for someone who doesn't perhaps identify as traumatized?
So let's define trauma first of all. There's trauma with a capital T, and that is your physical, emotional, mental abuse. Things that are tangible, they're real, you can feel them, you can acknowledge them. And then there's the little t trauma. And that's things like being rejected, being put to the back of the queue, being made fun of, being teased. So those all can cause us trauma. And the trauma part of that is how we held that, what we made, whatever happened to us, mean to us as that child. So those are two types of trauma, and we hold both of them in our body, but it's also logged in our subconscious mind as what happened, who was involved, how it made us feel, and all that information is logged in our subconscious mind. And that as well plays into our life when we are running it on autopilot for 95% of the time. We're running from the subconscious mind wants to, well, it's our ego, wants to try and protect us. It doesn't want us to go through that again. So we make choices unconsciously based on what we went through as children. But it's the how we're still holding on to it that that manifests the disease, that manifests the illness, the thoughts, the beliefs, the triggers now. So it's quite often we're not even aware of what is going on in our mind, our subconscious mind, and how it's running our life.
And when you say the body can heal itself, what does self healing mean within your framework?
So if we look at the context of self-healing as a big umbrella, and we look at when we get a bruise or when we get a cut, we don't go running to the doctors. We just know that over time it will heal. A cut might need cleaning up, it might need a plaster, band aid on it, but we know that the body will take care of it, will heal it. So if it can do that for those little things, why would it not be able to do that for the bigger things? Because every minute of every day, all of our cells are replenishing themselves, renewing themselves. So if they're going to renew themselves, why would they choose to not renew in a whole? Why would they choose to renew in a dis-ease version of themselves? So self healing is about tapping back into that inner wisdom, that inner knowing, whatever name you want to call it, that all the time, all day, every day, all night, our body is just simply regenerating and healing itself.
It is made perfectly, isn't it?
Yes.
And finally, how do you explain the mind body connection to someone who's brand new to this conversation?
So the mind and the body are inextricably linked. The mind is in the body and the body is in the mind. And what does that mean? It means that when we think something in our mind, we can actually feel it in our body. So, say pain, for example, a lot of people struggle with pain is very real. We feel it, but actually, we can generate pain from a thought in our mind can generate that pain. And the pain is no different to a traumatic injury. Pain is pain. We still feel it. And I know this for some people, that sounds a little crazy that our brain can manifest pain, but it can and it does. And another way to think about it is what we think about affects our body. So if we're thinking we're in a low mood, say, so that mental low mood, we feel low energy and we feel that heaviness in our body. Whereas when we're in a good mood, we feel happy, our body feels light and open and expansive. That is just one example of how our brain affects our body, and our body is affected by the energy of the thought. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You spent 20 years in nursing before something shifted. Can you walk us through what started to feel misaligned for you, not just professionally, but also internally?
Okay. So I started my nurse training in 98, qualified in 2001. We moved to America from the UK just to see what another culture was living in another culture was like. We moved forever in 2004. In 2005, one of my nurse colleagues challenged me about my use of pharmaceuticals at home. First time I'd ever been challenged about using medicines because that was the world I lived in. My mum was a nurse, I was a nurse, medicines were, I'm going to put normal in air quotes. And so my first thought is, why would a nurse challenge me, question me about using pharmaceuticals at home? What does that even mean? What else is there? So that sent me off doing lots and lots and lots of research about how our environments, our thoughts, our food affect our body, affect our healing, but I also went into pharmaceuticals, how pharmaceuticals affect our body because there's always side effects to pharmaceuticals. I do want to say, first off, though, I do believe Western medicine has a place for accidents, traumas, and injuries. Those acute problems need Western medicine. But for everything else, our bodies can heal when we tap into it. So, anyway, I was down this journey. So, I started thinking, well, if these people that I'm reading about online are healing themselves by, first of all, I just looked at diet, lifestyle, the nutrition, hydration, sleep, and exercise. Because as a nurse, that was like my first, that was my go to in the world that I knew. So I started tweaking that. And within about a month, I'd healed psoriasis, eczema, and acid reflux. So for the first time, I'm looking at what other people are doing, tweaking what I'm doing, and seeing tangible results. So I've gone from hoping that, well, if they can do it, is it possible I can do it? Or am I not quite as special as these people online? And if I am as special, can I start healing? Because I'd had a whole slew of chronic illnesses. Once I'd healed those in the first month, I'm like, I'm seeing tangible results now in my own body from what I'm doing in my life. And that was really a massive eye opener because for 41 years, I'd only used doctors and medicines and pills and hospitals. So now I'm starting to look at, I can see why I believed that because that was the world I was raised in. And then going to med school, it was propagated. But when I was challenged, I started looking outside of that life filter, if you like, those glasses that I wore, to what is possible. And now I'm seeing these results and knowing that it's possible for me. So I started going deeper and deeper into it, and healed candida, chronic PTSD, chronic joint pains, underactive thyroid, burned out adrenal glands, and depression with suicidal thoughts. And I went through over a period of years, but I went through and healed all of that, knowing that because I'd healed the first three conditions that my body could heal, that I then had belief. I truly believed that I could heal all these things, but it took me a long time. I mean, I'm looking at probably a 10 or 12-year time span that I went and healed all these conditions. But it was that belief within me that knew something had to change when I started tweaking my diet and lifestyle. I'm healing. And then that belief that I could continue that journey.
I can absolutely relate to what you're saying. I know we talked just a little bit before this show. So, you know a little bit about my story as well, and totally mind blowing for me also on my journey to find that there were so many opportunities holistically, natural medicine, integrative medicine that I could use to work with myself and heal things. And it's such a miraculous, empowering experience. I'm sure you must feel the same.
Absolutely, yes. When I was in that depressive episode with the suicidal thoughts, my doctor wanted to medicate me because I was so low. Having got so far down my healing journey, I said, no, I don't want that. I have done antidepressants before in the past, and they just literally took all of my emotions away. And I don't want that because I know I can heal. But I had absolutely no idea whatsoever how I was going to heal. I just had this deep seated belief that I could heal.
And I have had that exact experience. For me, I had lost my health insurance. So at the time, I was on like 20 different pharmaceutical medications and the pandemic hit. And it's like, you don't have insurance. So we need to figure this out. So that was really terrifying initially, right? But it was also extremely motivating to like, you know what? I don't know how we're gonna like how this is gonna go, but we're gonna hop in and we're gonna figure out what works. And, I don't need those pharmaceutical medications, we're 7 years later from all of that, but and absolutely, I agree with you that there's a place for it, absolutely. You often teach that symptoms are rooted in that subconscious childhood trauma. For listeners who may feel skeptical or confused by that, how do you explain this relationship between emotional history and physical symptoms?
It goes back to the mind body connection and the fact that our symptoms are messages from our subconscious mind because it's subconscious, it's below our consciousness. We don't know what's going on in there. So it speaks in symptoms. And these symptoms, as I say, they're messages, they hold wisdom because our body is trying to talk to us. So I'll use myself as an example. So for years, I had chronic low back pain without injury. It could just one day, I could wake up, get up out of bed, and I'd literally fall on the floor because of the excruciating pain in my back. There was no injury there. How could my back be so incredibly painful without a trauma? What else? I manifested the depression because I do believe we co create our lives. That for some people can be challenging, but we co-create based on our beliefs of what we're doing. And I manifested that deep, dark depression because when you look at the word depression, it's deep rest. And it's the body crying out for a rest. It wants to stop, slow down and rest. And during that time, that was the time I realized that although I'd wanted to be a nurse forever, and I saw myself living my days out as a nurse and literally dying still as a nurse, because I'd healed myself and had this deep mismatch with nursing, following doctor's orders, keeping people in that sick role versus all the healing that I'd done on myself, my body, my mind. It was a huge mismatch. And I realized that I was really struggling with this. I'm Sarah the nurse. And if I'm not Sarah the nurse, who the heck am I? Because I'd only ever wanted to be Sarah the nurse. And I'd tied my authenticity, not authenticity, I'd tied myself, my who I am around my job. And I didn't know who I was outside of Sarah the nurse. So my body spoke for me. He went, enough now, you're done. Nursing's finished. But I didn't know because I'm still going, oh, I only ever wanted to be a nurse. My head's doing this backwards and forwards, but nursing, but self-healing, but nursing, but who am I? And it was because I had to stop nursing during that dark, dark time because I just couldn't function. And as I started to heal that, I realized that actually the crux of what I want to do is help people when they're vulnerable. Nursing was a step into seeing that, but actually I realized that I needed to step away from nursing and into coaching. But that was too big a step for me at first. So I stepped into entrepreneurship as a nurse entrepreneur. And the depression started just disappearing, dissolving, but it wasn't fully aligned until I stepped away from that, surrendered my license, and became a coach. So that was the chronic pain. That was the depression. I had two frozen shoulders, one year, one the next year. And if we look at the emotional cause of that, it's the weight of the world on your shoulders. Left side is the feminine side. The right side is the masculine side. So the feminine's about receiving, the masculine's about giving. The symbolism between my shoulders, yes, I was feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders because I was a nurse entrepreneur at the time, so I still wasn't fully aligned. And I was enjoying what I was doing. I was making the money, but it wasn't quite where I wanted to be. And I felt that weight of Yes, I'm doing well. I'm being recognized. I've won awards. I'm making money. Business is great. With I'm still a nurse. I still hold that nursing license and I have to sign the register every year to say I'm upholding the nursing standards. So the emotional holding of that tied into that. From holding the subconscious, if I tell you about a client I had, middle-aged lady, kept bursting into tears, kept thinking she's spoiling her daughter's life, doing everything wrong. When I picked into her childhood, she'd been given to relatives several times over the period of her childhood. She saw that as abandonment. She held that as my parents didn't want me. They gave me to other families and friends for certain periods of time, and then she was given back. It transpired her mum had such serious mental health problems that she was taken into an institution for periods of time. Her dad couldn't look after her by himself. So, as an act of love, she was given to relatives and friends. And she had chronic pain and she was just so emotional all the time. She kept crying. She felt worthless. And when we dug in and understood that actually that being given to family and friends was an act of love, not an act of abandonment, radically changed her view of what actually happened, allowed her to release all the emotions she had trapped inside of her for being abandoned, because clearly she wasn't. She was very loved. Reframe that. And in doing so, her pain dissipated and her days got lighter and she stopped crying all the time.
What do you notice happens in people when they begin seeing their symptoms not as enemies, but as messengers?
Do you know, when they do that, it's beautiful because to go, oh, or aha, oh, wow, I see. And it makes sense. And the way I coach with compassionate conversations, I help them to see what I see without me telling them so that they see and pinpoint what has happened in their childhood and how it's reflecting on their life now. So when they make that link to what happened then and how they're holding it, still holding it now, because unless we've done the work and released that, we're all still holding some of that stuff from our childhood. And when they see that, it's just so beautiful because it's like suddenly all this weight's suddenly been lifted off their shoulders and they can't unsee it. So they've made that link and they see the wisdom in the symptoms that they're suffering with, are struggling with. And as they do that work to uncover their childhood traumas and how they're affecting them now, it is literally, you could see that weight being lifted out of their body and off of them. And that is the crux of the work that I do to help people to see what they don't see.
You've spoken openly about changing a core belief and moving through a dark night of the soul. What did that internal transformation actually look and feel like?
So it looked like 3 dark years with a period of that with those suicidal thoughts as I was having that battle with my mind really about who I am and where's my life going and if I'm not going to be a nurse, what am I going to be? As I started healing that depression, I realized I was intuitively practicing gratitude and mindfulness. I'd been doing it for about 6 months. Suddenly, like I looked, rather than looking down and in the dark, I suddenly looked up and like, oh, there's flowers on the ground and buds on the trees. And I see and hear the stream by the side of me. So that kick-started my healing, which helped lift my mood. And then I started doing some meditation because I thought that was the thing to do. And I'm sat on the floor with thumb and finger together in the mudra going, and I've got this voice in my head. I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm cut out to meditate because I had no idea what it involved. Like, I don't think meditation and me is going to be best of friends. So, I mean, I look back and I can laugh at it, but at the time there was just this negative voice. Who do you think you are? You're worthless. Nobody wants to listen to you. And that was challenging. But I found I could shut that voice up with the guided meditation. So initially I did some guided meditations, just 5 minutes because I didn't have the capacity to sit and just listen to, and I was listening just to find peace inside. It's just like, I just want the world to stop. Actually, I wanted the pain of everything I was going through to stop. I'm like, just stop the world. I want to get off. And the more I listened, the more peace I found within. And then I started looking at, how do I want my life to look? What's the next step from here? So I started doing some visualizations around setting up a business, becoming an entrepreneur, and then not just any old entrepreneur. I needed to be an award-winning one, and then just not one award, but several awards. It looks crazy looking back now, but it's all manifest. But I just kept, doing different meditations about moving forward in my life, moving forward first like 1 week and then 1 month and then 6 months of what's it going to look like and what am I going to be doing and how am I going to be feeling. And I brought all of that into fruition and it was all part of my own healing journey walking forwards. So it's another mind body. I worked with my mind to heal my past and my inner trauma. And in doing so, I was able then to bring about my future. Did I answer that question, or was the part of it that I missed?
No, not at all. How would you say that transformation, how did it impact your sense of safety, your identity, and your sense of purpose?
It filled my sense of purpose. It impacted my sense of safety massively because my comfort zone was the size of a penny because I'd been in such a dark place and I hadn't gone out very much at all, apart from walking the dogs, definitely no socializing, just, really, really stuck within my home because life was so dark. So I knew my sense of purpose and I had to then step into it. And I started going to networking groups with a friend of mine, and she'd literally hold my hand. And I was vibrating as we stepped into the building to do the networking. I was so anxious. I was physically vibrating and I felt it and I heard it in my voice. And I'm like, I have to do this because when our comfort zone is so, so tiny, it takes massive amounts of courage to step out of that, and nobody can do it for us. That's something we have to do. People can support us, but they can't physically do that for us. So, in doing that and pushing myself, I grew my comfort zone, which grew my courage, which I kept looking to the future. I'm doing this to become an entrepreneur. I'm doing this to use my wisdom, my suffering to help others to heal themselves. So it was massively challenging, but it was hugely rewarding because of stepping into my purpose.
Surrendering your nursing license was a massive life transition. What helped you trust that inner knowing, even when it meant letting go of everything that was familiar? I mean, how did you begin supporting others once you stepped into that new chapter?
So it took me actually 2 years thinking about surrendering my license to actually get in there because of who am I if I'm not that nurse? Because I was stepped out of the hospital into nurse entrepreneurship. And once I understood who I was and did that deeper inner work, it helped me to realize that I'm not tied to Sarah the nurse. I'm Sarah the free spirit with a hippie heart and a gypsy soul and who loves colors. So once I realized who I was deep down in the core of me, who I used to be, plus all my experience on top, who I'm becoming now, I stepped into my soul's purpose and set up my second business and closed my first one down. And I knew that was the right thing to do. And in doing so, I had to surrender my nursing license because I realized A, I was no longer a nurse, and B, that wasn't the helping people role that I really wanted. I saw that as a step to get me into where I am now. So it was all part of my life path and journey to get me to where I am now.
You often say that what's possible for others is possible for us too. From your perspective, what helps someone move from hopelessness into belief in their own healing capacity? And what do you most wish people understood about their bodies and their potential?
Okay, the first part is You have to believe that you are worthy enough to have what it is that you want. Because a lot of times, what holds us back is our feeling of a lack of worth, or we feel unloved, or something that's happened in our childhood. And we're telling ourselves a story based on how we're holding something from our childhood. We gave it meaning. Whether that meaning that we gave it is true or not, we still hold that meaning to what we gave it. So, to change that belief, we have to look at, is it really true that I am unloved or unworthy? And what evidence can I find to back that up? And we'll always find something because it's a cognitive bias. Our brain will go, well, look, then there was that, then there was that, then there was that. And all of that shows that you're unworthy. Okay, noted. Then we have to go and say, is there any evidence to show that that is not true? That we are worthy, that we've done something and we go, might be more challenging to find, but you will find things. So if we can find things that show us that we are worthy, we are loved, we are able, we're not stupid, whatever we were told by people who didn't realize the impact of what they said to us, how we would hold that. Once we found that information, then the first part of it, I'm not worthy, I'm not whatever, cannot be true 100% because we've found evidence that says the opposite. And that's how we look at our beliefs. What do I believe? And is it really true? So if we can find the opposite, then it can't possibly be true because we've found evidence to say, I am worthy, I am confident, I am able. So when we can do that, we need to tap into that and maybe write down everything that points to us being worthy and able and intelligent and, everything that we can be that is the opposite of what we were told we would never be or we could never be. And when we look down at that list and read it, that reinforces to us that we are worthy, we are capable. And if we're worthy, we're able to flip that belief from I'm not worthy to I am worthy. And it's these beliefs that help propel us forwards to get what it is that we want. And it's the disbelief, the I'm not worthy, that's holding us back and stopping us from getting what we want in life, from doing, from being, from healing, whatever that goal is. So, in changing that belief, that helps us to step forward towards what it is that we want in life. So, that's how we can change that belief and step into that. And in understanding that, we change the energy in our body as well, because suddenly we've gone from I'm not worthy to I've found information that says actually I am.
I love that. Look for the contrary. Always look for the contrary. We always end our conversations with a listener invitation, and it's not really an assignment, but it's like a gentle opening. So Sarah, if you have a reflection or a micro practice that you would like the listeners to explore every day for the next week, especially those navigating symptoms or emotional healing, what would you offer them?
I'd ask them to take some time, and it can be a minute, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, whatever works for the listeners. And just sit and close your eyes and slow your breathing down. And then just scan your body in your mind's eye. Go down from your head into your shoulders, into your arms, hands, and then down through your chest and upper back, into your abdomen and lower back, into your thighs, your knees, your shins and calves, your ankles, your feet, your toes. And just literally go through your body slowly and gently and find anywhere that feels more tense or tight or has a different sensation. You can use colors and shapes, whatever works for you. Maybe you find a dark square or a gray circle or just a heavy, dense, tight energy, whatever works for you. And just breathe into it. So breathe love into that area because love heals everything. We cannot heal in hate or by fighting. And I hear so many people say, I'm fighting this and I'm fighting that. And I'm like, you can only heal it in love. So please breathe into your body, feel into those areas, and ask yourself, what is it that you need? You're asking your body or your inner child, however you want to phrase it. What is it you need? How can I support you? Where are you holding some trauma, some darker energy, some heavier energy? And just breathe whatever color you want, pink for love if you like, or white light, and breathe out whatever color it is that you see or associate with that heaviness, tightness, whatever. See that as the color of the exhale and just sit and be with your body. Breathe that love in and breathe that darkness out. And I'm telling you, that will make a huge difference.
Thank you so much for that. And for our listeners after the show today, I'll ask Sarah to send us a written copy of that, and you should be able to find that in the show notes. As we begin to close, I'd love to ask you one more question. After hearing this conversation, what do you most hope that listeners will walk away remembering about themselves?
Love your listeners to take away that they are self healers. We all have the ability to heal. It's just that many of us were never exposed to that information. We were told we need doctors and pills and hospitals. So I would love your listeners to come back into their body and know that it heals and believe in it, because I have lots of people, well, not lots of people. I have some people write to me periodically and say, you can't heal multiple sclerosis, you can't heal autoimmune, you can't heal this, that, the other, whatever. And we absolutely can. And I've interviewed people who can and who have. And there's no one thing that heals everything. It's about your belief in what you're doing that heals you. If you believe that whatever it is that you're doing will heal you, it will heal you. If you believe that it won't, it absolutely won't. Your belief is the key to your healing.
And energy will flow where your attention goes.
Totally.
Sarah, thank you so much for bringing your honesty, your courage, and your lived wisdom into this space today. Your journey is a powerful reminder that healing isn't about forcing change, but about listening inward, shifting beliefs, and rebuilding our relationships with our bodies over time. To our listeners, thank you for being here. If something in today's episode resonated with you, please consider liking, subscribing, or sharing the show. That's how these conversations travel, and it's how they reach the people who need to hear them the most. You'll be able to find Sarah's contact information as well in our show notes. And until next time, this is Dr. Sarah Young, and this is Neuroalchemy. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are becoming. Bye for now.